Today on You're a Better Artist Than You Think, 4 tips to help you make more time for your personal projects. Welcome back, artists and storytellers, to You're a Better Artist Than You Think. I'm your host, Chris Oatley.
And I'm your co host, Veronica Kosofsky. As creative people, we care a lot about time because our projects require so much of it. And many, if not most of us, want to spend more time working on our creative projects. It's that there never seems to be enough time for these things.
And there isn't, which is why today we're going to argue that time management, as we commonly think about it, is a flawed concept. And why, especially for creative people, a dramatically different strategy is required. Hey friends, we'd like to take just a moment and invite you to join the Magic Box Brush Club at digitalartbrushes.com. There you can claim your 100% free lifetime membership to the Magic Box Brush Club and get new digital art brushes with accompanying tutorial guides every month for an entire year. Visit digitalartbrushes.com and join the Magic Box Brush Club today. Part 1. Give your best to your project and therefore yourself. We'll split this episode into 2 sections. Story time, in which we offer a better alternative than time management, and implementation, in which we'll offer tips on how to do the things. Veronica, we have a mutual friend, one of my mentees, who asked a question in class a few years ago about how to make more time for their personal projects. And they said what a lot of artists say, which is, I go to work, I come home, I hang out with my roommate, make dinner, and by the time I actually sit down at my desk to work on, this person is a concept artist, so they were specifically talking about concept art, to work on my designs and paintings, I've got nothing left. And I'm exhausted mentally, emotionally, physically, and I'm just not able to generate the amount or quality of work that I want to be making in order to change the trajectory of my career. This artist was attempting to redirect their career from a more tech-focused job to a more creative job. And I told this artist what I tell every artist who presents this problem, that the solution is not time management, that time management is bullshit. Time management never works. When do you ever manage your time?
Right.
You know what I mean? This never, ever works. We struggle and struggle endlessly. Like I said, I've been doing a version of this podcast. I've been teaching courses online for over 12 years, working with artists, and this problem has not been solved. It's not about time management. It's about priority management. Instead of waiting until after the day job you hate, until after you've drained your social battery even further in interacting with your roommate and listening to them vent about how much they hate their job, after exerting the physical energy of making dinner and cleaning up the kitchen afterwards, and then finally sitting down at your workspace. Instead of doing it last, do it first. Give your best to the thing you're most passionate about. Give your best to your future self. Give your best to the love of your craft, not the job you hate or the job that is indifferent about you. Right? My advice, work on your personal project before anything else. Prioritize that. Now, I can already hear the wave of objections roiling in a cloud of fury toward me. Everybody just relax. We're going to address the objections, and we're going to talk about some specific circumstances that I think will answer most of your questions. But just hear me out for a moment. Just hear me out. What if you worked on your personal project first? Don't worry about whether or not you're a quote unquote early riser or not. Don't worry about any of that. Just what if? How would life change if you prioritized the creative projects you actually wanted to be doing? How would life change? So that's the claim here. The argument that we're going to try to make is why it's worth it to prioritize your creative projects, that it's not about time management, it's about priority management. It's not about trying to do more. It's not about magically finding some sort of physical, mental, emotional energy late at night. It's about first things first.
So, Chris, I'm totally with you on the priority management versus time management premise, but I think we should maybe get to those obvious objections you mentioned.
Yes, of course. There are several objections that it seems like everybody has to this proposal, that you should prioritize your personal projects, and that in doing so, that means you should wake up earlier. People always say, well, I'm not a morning person. Nobody is a morning person, right? Who is a morning person? I'm being hyperbolic here. Of course, there are some people that are the morning person, right? We all know that person.
Oh, yeah.
The person who's just up at 6 a.m. and they've already been on a jog and they've got their coffee, and sure, but that's the fringe example. Those people are total weirdos. No offense to the morning people. You're great. My point is, we think about being a morning person in the same way that some people think about artistic, quote unquote, talent.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a thing you have or a thing you don't have. And of course, artists get offended by the idea that, oh, you're just gifted and I'm not. Right? That's
True.
really offensive to artists. They go, no, I worked hard to develop this skill. I wasn't just blasted with gamma rays and suddenly I can draw, you know? You worked hard to get good at your job. I worked hard to get good at my job.
Uh-huh.
And early rising is the same thing. Of course, yes, there are some people to whom it seems to just come naturally. Great. Good for them. Good for them. But just because it doesn't come naturally doesn't mean it's out of reach.
That's a really good point.
I appreciate that. I am living proof of this. I was not a morning person. And now I guard my mornings like it's my life, because it is my life. I guard my mornings so closely. I look forward to my mornings. Mornings are great. I love mornings now. I used to be the guy who just didn't want to get out of bed and just slept in and stayed up late and had this totally unpredictable schedule. And now I feel not restricted by routine, but I feel empowered by it. I feel more alive because I've become a morning person. And I'm really productive. I get all kinds of creative projects done. And so I'm saying it is a learnable skill. If you're not a morning person, don't worry. Nobody is a morning person, except for just a few weirdos.
I think my mom is one of those weirdos. She pops out of bed like a piece of toast from a toaster.
There you go. Mama Kozowski, fringe morning person.
Totally. I did not inherit that, but I will say I agree, Chris, with the being awake and doing things in the morning. You're kind of awake before most people, or even if they're awake, they're, shuffling around, going on their commutes and stuff like that. So you get a little bit of peace there to just kind of be with yourself and with your thoughts. And I think that's really valuable for any creative.
Yes, exactly. And even if you are a person who manages to consistently make time for your personal projects at night, you still have all the mental residue of the day.
Oh, yeah.
So your brain is still fatigued and weighed down by all the stuff, all the things. Artists often object to this idea of being a morning person. They say, I'm not a morning person. And what they actually mean is, one time 3 years ago, I had to wake up at 4 a.m. to take my roommate to the airport or whatever. They had one isolated early morning where they had to get up super early, and it was miserable. And of course it was miserable then. Your body wasn't used to it. It was a pattern interrupt. Of course it was miserable. I'm not talking about a one-time thing. I'm talking about a habit. I'm talking about something that you get used to. Yes, you have to embrace the suck for a little while. You have to be uncomfortable for a little while, but then your body will adjust. I'm not talking about one 4 a.m. trip to the airport. I'm talking about 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 6 months maybe. I'm talking about a commitment to changing the rhythm of your relationship to your personal projects. And if you are at all willing to consider prioritizing your personal projects in the morning, then we'll offer a tip that will help you make that transition almost entirely pain-free later in the episode. But before we get to that, Veronica, I need to address a couple more of these common objections. Here's a newer common objection. Oh, you're just promoting hustle culture. Right, you're just promoting hustle culture. This idea of deny yourself sleep and grind, and try to squeeze every bit of productivity that you can out of every waking hour. That is not what I'm talking about. I am not promoting hustle culture. The idea of first things first goes way back. It predates hustle culture by millennia. The adage of the early bird gets the worm, right? Mm-hmm. This is an ancient concept. This is not some sort of potentially toxic culture that has emerged out of the social media dynamic. Another mutual friend of ours, a visual development artist in animation, he has a very thorough resume at this point. He was going through my professional networking course. It's called CLIck, Professional Networking for Creative Introverts. You can learn more about that at magicboxacademy.com. He started working through the CLIck curriculum and got immediate results. I can't promise immediate results, but he got immediate results. And he told us in class the other day that he was talking to his wife about those results. And he said, I just never thought I was good at networking. And his wife said to him, it's not that you're not good at it, it's that you don't do it.
Oh.
Yeah. And the same applies to early rising. The same thing applies. Again, I'm not talking about hustle culture. I'm not talking about endangering your physical and mental health. I'm talking about prioritization. I'm just talking about first things first. Okay, Veronica, the third objection that I want to address here before we move into the implementation section is the objection, well, I work better late at night. I'm a night owl, right?
I hear that one all the time from fellow artists, Chris.
Absolutely. Yeah, me too. I've been hearing it for 12 years plus, right? I always counter that with a bit of skepticism. Is that actually true, or is that what you're used to? Is that actually working for you? Even if it is true that you work better at night, but you're not working at night, or at least not consistently, then you don't actually work better at night because you don't work at all at night. Let's just be honest about what's actually going on. If you want to be a late riser so badly, that is fine. This is your life. You should get to live it the way you want to live it. I'm just saying, how's time management working out for you? It's not a problem if it's not a problem. If working late is not a problem for you, if you're consistently making more time for your creative projects at nighttime, then great. If it ain't broke, right? This proposal, this argument that priority management is better than time management is for the people who are complaining. If it's not an issue and you say you prefer late nights and that's reflected in your habits, well then great, go listen to a different episode of the podcast. This is not a problem for you.
Chris, I think we should talk about our mutual friend Manny at this point.
Yes, Manny, precious Manny. Manny works at a warehouse and he has to be at work at 5 a.m.
Oof. Yeah, for Manny to be working before his day job would require him to be up at some ridiculous hour like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Which at that point, you're not even an early riser. You're basically nocturnal.
Yeah, right.
And so sometimes it's a possibility and sometimes it isn't.
Right. It's just not realistic.
Yeah, exactly. For those folks whose schedules can't, for whatever reason, accommodate the early riser tip, don't worry. We've got some advice on how to make working after your day job a little bit easier. Part 2. Tips for priority management.
Tip number 1 is to make early easier. Now, some of you might just want to rip off the Band-Aid, set your alarm 2 hours earlier, 3 hours earlier, whatever it is, and just, like I said, embrace the suck and just struggle through it, right? That might be how you prefer to go about it. Something that worked for me years ago was not setting the alarm 2-3 hours earlier. It was setting the alarm 5 minutes earlier and then setting it 5 minutes earlier than that the next day. So 10 minutes, then the next day it's 15, 20, and so on. If I'm just moving it back 5 minutes each day, it's so gradual that you don't really feel it, or at least you don't feel it as intensely as you would if you just set the alarm for 2 or 3 hours earlier.
Yeah, that makes sense because then you're letting your body adjust to it rather than just jumping in the ice cold pool.
Exactly. And of course, on that first day, 5 extra minutes for your personal project is not going to make that much of a difference. But even just 5 days in, you've got 20 extra minutes. And now we're talking about enough time to get some thumbnails done on your graphic novel or to clean up a frame from your animated short.
Yeah.
Right? Now we're starting to make a visible impact. And we've only been doing it a week.
Now imagine how much that's going to exponentially grow over 2 weeks, a month, a year.
Exactly.
Tip number 2 is plan for smooth transitions. Chris, you and I both have experience teaching in public schools.
Yes.
And so we've both been faced with the inevitable challenges of classroom management.
Uh-huh.
Just par for the course when you're teaching in a public school. Especially in the US, class sizes are ridiculously large at 20 to 30 students per teacher.
So many kids.
It seems more manageable when you just think about it like, oh yeah, 20 kids, what could go wrong? But then, when little Tobias is out there like scribbling on the wall and like Jacob is just like, teacher, I need to go to the bathroom. It's a lot.
Oh, Tobias and Jacob.
As a teacher, if you don't plan your day down to the minute, it is very, very easy to end up with these liminal bits of time that kids will just, they'll fill it in for you.
Chaos reigns.
Yes, exactly. And so when you're a teacher, you end up getting really good about not only planning your lessons, but also thinking about the transitions between those lessons. Good transitions have clear beginnings and endings. I think that's the main part of it. you end up cueing your students with a prearranged signal that you've come up with in advance and modeled and trained them with in advance so that they know what to expect. And that helps you smooth those sections of time. So, for example, in a fourth grade classroom that I assisted in, a lead teacher who I worked with would play a song to signal the transition between math time and language arts time.
Don't get us a copyright strike, Veronica. No, actually, don't get this stuck in my head, please.
What can I say except you're welcome? Yep, that teacher used "You're Welcome" from Moana. And so what was good about that is the students have to know what time frame they're dealing with, right? If you vary the song every time, they're not going to know. They're going to be like, oh, is this a 2-minute song or a 5-minute song?
Right.
This transition had an added benefit that it also involved a change of place. When the students were working on their math, they were back at their desks. By the end of the song, the teacher wanted the students to meet her at the front of the classroom on the rug. So that was really great because the students knew that as soon as the song started playing, they'd wrap up their materials, they'd put away their math stuff in their cubbies, and then the expectation from the teacher was that they would meet her at the rug with their language arts binders ready to go.
Wow.
Yeah, she was full of those kinds of amazing teaching tips. So definitely one of my favorite people I've worked with in education.
That's amazing. Could I tell you what I think are my transition moments in a regular day for me? And you could evaluate them, I guess. You could confirm or deny if I'm on the right track here and understanding, or give me a sense of how maybe I could make better transitions.
Yeah, sure thing, Chris. Let's apply some elementary psychology to this.
I need some of that. Okay, so on my non-teaching days, I wake up and I go to the donut shop. Everybody always wonders if I eat donuts all the time. No, I do not. I am very disciplined about my sugar
Aw,
intake.
man.
I just get a cup of black coffee and I sit at the donut shop and work until they close, which is around 1 p.m. Now, some of the employees who work there have told me that I am now officially one of them, and I may as well be on the payroll. I have yet to see a paycheck from the donut shop, by the way. But hey, all I'm saying is I wouldn't be disappointed if the paycheck was actually just donuts. But seriously, I work there until they close at 1, and because I'm now one of them, I pretty much work through close. So I am starting to kind of swim up and out of my deep focus, deep work mode as the vibe and the energy, the physical energy in the donut shop starts to change, right? The doors get locked, other customers stop coming in. Oftentimes they'll play different music. Thankfully, never "You're Welcome" from Moana, but they'll often turn the music up because they're going to be mopping the floors and cleaning the kitchen and these kind of things. So it's kind of, the whole vibe changes.
Right.
This is, for me, starting to suggest it's time to have some lunch, and the first kind of block of your day is over now. You can consider it a win. You can consider it kind of a loss, depending on how it went. But this is kind of an evaluation point. Usually what happens is I go home and have lunch, and then I head to the library in the afternoon, and I do my second block of time at the library, typically. But that's pretty much my rhythm. And the thing I like most about this is that point where the donut shop energy changes and I start kind of reevaluating my day. When I do the library session in the afternoon, that helps me refocus, but the kind of reprioritization will happen almost automatically when the donut shop starts closing. Basically, that's where I realize I accurately judged, or I misjudged, or I grossly misjudged what I thought I would get done today. And then I go to lunch and I figure out what to do about that.
Right.
How am I going to respond to that evaluation? Am I ahead? Am I behind, et cetera? Am I making sense?
Oh, yeah, definitely. When the donut shop is closing and you start to hear the differing sounds, you start to pick up on that differing energy, it's like you're getting a freebie transition right there. And so that's
Hmm.
really smart because that differing of sound, the different songs, it's that cue for your brain to just be like, okay, we're transitioning now from donut shop time to analyzing what we got done and starting to prepare mentally for that afternoon in the library.
But here's the thing, because I didn't know about the power of transitions as you're describing it here, I couldn't have designed that if it didn't just happen because the donut shop is closing.
Right.
I get those transitions for free. This tip is titled Plan for Smooth Transitions. How do the listeners actually plan? How do they make this kind of thing happen if they don't have the good fortune that I did from getting my transitions from the routine of the donut shop itself?
When you take a look at your schedule, really be on the lookout for these areas of time where you already know you're transitioning from one activity to the next, and look for ways to make those transitions just a little bit more habit forming. Think about what might be a good transition activity that you'd like to plan into your schedule to cue you to work on your personal project. This can be anything from something like a short walk or brewing a cup of tea, brewing a cup of coffee, maybe listening to a couple minutes of a certain album. I also kind of like to just dump my brain out on a journal page sometimes where,
Oh,
yeah, where you use that journaling aspect almost as if you were talking to someone about the end of your day. Just dump out whatever was in there so that your brain is fresh and reset for that personal project work time that you've got. You don't want to make this overcomplicated, right? Like with the teacher example or Chris, your example with the donut shop, neither of those are very complex, right? There's not a whole lot going on there. It's not like, oh, my transition is going to be sweeping the floor and then cleaning up my dishes and then making some dinner and then, oh, wait, but I need to start my laundry. That stops being a transition, right? Because it's just a chain of various events. So you want to pick something that's sort of intuitive and quick relatively so that you can prioritize the time you have for your personal project and not accidentally make the transition take longer than the time you have for your project. So, the beauty of things like going on a short walk or doing a stretch break or the journaling that I mentioned is that they're all pretty quick activities, but they really help your brain get focused and get clear so that you can actually start working on your art. But also, keeping that transition consistent is very important.
well, that's great. I'm going to be more intentional about this transitions thing. Thank you for sharing that.
What can I say except you're welcome?
Ridiculous. I do think we should mention that this tip, the transitions tip, is especially important for people like Manny, our friend Manny, who we mentioned earlier, who has to be at his warehouse job at 5 a.m. And so it's just unrealistic for him to try to be an earlier riser than 4 or 3:30 whenever he has to wake up. Like you said, he just becomes nocturnal at that point, and that's a whole other thing. That's a night shift situation, right? So the transitions are especially important when you don't have any choice but to work after your day job or late at night for whatever reason.
Yeah, exactly. The transitions really help you clear your brain from whatever you were doing before and get into the zone of actually working on your art.
Tip number 3 is to optimize your workspace. Friends, I cannot overstate the importance of guarding your workspace. Make any and all preparations so all you have to do is sit down, perhaps do your transitional activity,
Haha.
and start working. Make sure there's no friction in between you and the personal project. So that means No mess on your workspace. Protect your workspace. Keep it clean and organized. No stressors piled on to the workspace like bills or dirty laundry. You should not have to perform an archaeological dig in order to get to your workspace. You don't want any friction in between you and your personal project. Again, there are way too many conflicts for your time and energy and attention. Of course we get distracted. Of course we get exhausted. We need to optimize access to our workspace. We'll give you some examples of that momentarily, but this often means enlisting the help of your roommates or family, people you live with, that they also are not absent-mindedly tossing bills onto your workspace or absent-mindedly tossing laundry onto your workspace, et cetera, et cetera. You need their help to keep that space ready to go whenever you're sitting down to work.
I'm a big believer in workplace cleanliness.
I think it's essential.
I agree completely, because when you're working with such limited time and energy to begin with, any little thing you see on your desk, any little distraction is going to do just that, distract you.
You might actually find yourself avoiding the workspace because you want to avoid the discomfort. Of course, you would want to avoid the discomfort of those triggers.
That's a really good point, Chris. I have a pretty minimal desk setup, basically just my computer, my tablet, my planner, maybe one pen and a small notepad to jot down ideas, and my water bottle. It's everything that I need to do a productive work session, especially if I'm doing digital art. That's pretty much it. And then if I am doing, say, some traditional sketches or some other task that I need different supplies for, I love having things nearby, but not on my desk. So I've got my good old IKEA Alex right next to me.
Weighs a ton, but it's really effective.
Oh, dude, you do not want to move with that piece of furniture.
No, and I have multiple times.
I feel like my spinal cord will never recover.
Yeah, right.
I love having those materials close by so that I can access them if I need them, but they don't need to necessarily be there if I'm, say, working on a digital painting. So what I'll do is I have designated drawers in that Alex drawer for different things. So I don't have to face the rummaging in the drawers for those items. They're already pre-planned and pre-placed, so they're easy to access, but not in my front and center field of view.
That's great.
This is also really beneficial because I'm sure, like many of our listeners, my desk, I use it for multiple tasks throughout the day. I do my client work at my desk, and I do my personal work at my desk. And then I also have to do any miscellaneous computer tasks, like, say, paying bills, at that same desk. When you have to do that many tasks in one station, it can get very overwhelming if you leave things out from one of those things. Let's say I left out a bunch of stuff from my bills. When I go then to try to work on my personal projects, that's the thing I see. And if I can just put it away, out of sight, out of mind, it's that much easier to switch between those tasks. And actually, going back to our transitions point from earlier, that almost becomes a built-in transition where if I'm wrapping up, say, a traditional sketching session, when I close the sketchbook, when I put away those drawing supplies into the drawer, and then I come back to my desk, I know that I've just concluded my traditional work session, and now I can begin on, say, my digital painting. And that's really refreshing for the mind.
That's great. I do most of my work offsite at the donut shop or the library, as I mentioned earlier. I only work at home when I'm doing this. I'm here in my very tiny home workspace to record a podcast or a lesson, or I'm teaching on Fridays and Saturdays. Those are pretty much the only times I'm here. And so my workspace is mobile. I pack my mobile office that I keep in my backpack every single night. So I can just grab the backpack and go, and I know everything that I need is in there. my MacBook, my iPad with the Apple Pencil, my Wacom tablet with the Wacom pen. Always make sure I have the Wacom pen because I've made that mistake before. I get there and I plug in the tablet and then I go, oh no, I don't have the stylus.
It's your cue to start finger painting, Chris.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Continuing our elementary theme.
Yeah, right. That's amazing. I do have a traditional sketchbook that I keep for just in case, as well as a spiral notebook, a set of headphones, and always some granola bars, some almonds, things like that in case I'm doing a longer work session or in case I go to the library instead of coming home for lunch. Again, we can cover more in depth what's in the backpack in a future episode. My point is that I have everything ready to go, and I have that mental checklist of everything that I know needs to be in there for any potential type of work that I might be doing off-site. Put that in the backpack, set the backpack by the door. It's ready to go the next morning.
That's fantastic. I think even being an early riser, it's easy to forget stuff in the morning. So just being prepared and having things packed is a real good way to start your day.
Absolutely. Before the last point, we do want to invite you to consider joining us in the Clockwork Heart. This is my mentorship, and the focus of the Clockwork Heart is the creation of personal projects. We have a vibrant, inspiring community of artists who are working on personal projects of all different types. Entrepreneurial projects, graphic novels, indie game development, animation, and on and on. It's an amazing community, and I welcome you to apply at magicboxacademy.com.
What we just mentioned about being prepared leads into tip number 4, which is to end with preparation. If you end every work session by being prepared for the next, it's only going to make your life easier that next day when you come back to work on your personal project. It may seem kind of obvious that, oh yeah, of course, being prepared is useful.
Hot take.
We can take it for granted, right? Where we think we're more prepared than we actually are. I like to write my next to-dos for the painting I'm working on in my planner the night before, so that when I pick back up on it the next day, I already have a clear idea of where I'm going with the painting and what I want to work on next.
Yeah, you don't have to notice all those things again when you return to the painting. If they were top of mind when you were working on it in the previous session, why not just write it down then?
I think that's exactly it.
Yeah, that also relates to the smooth transitions point. It helps to smooth the transition. So when you come back to the painting, you can just look over those notes and you've got a plan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's great. I do something similar. I mentioned how most of my artwork now is digital, although I do work traditionally as well sometimes, more for therapeutic reasons these days. But I like to create a notes layer directly on my PSD or Procreate file. So I'll create a new layer and I notate the painting. I just write in red teacher pen on top of the painting, lighten this, fix this value, add more texture, whatever the notes are right there. So when I open up the file in the next painting session, it's almost like I had an art director helping me along. Of course, we just gave you 2 visual art examples, but this tip of ending with preparation applies to to-do list items as well. And in fact, my favorite time management tip, I used to think of it as time management, is actually a priority management tip. That tip is to fit everything that you have to do the next day onto a single Post-it note. But no cheating by writing small. If you can't fit it onto a single Post-it note without writing and turning the sentence at a 90-degree angle and writing small, if you can't fit it naturally, just with regular sized handwriting onto a single Post-it note, you probably are lying to yourself about what you can actually get done the next day. But if you do that preparation at the end of your last work session for the day, maybe that was your day job, maybe that was doing chores when you got home, maybe that was a work session for your personal project. If you use that last 5 to 10 minutes of work time to plan for the next day. Again, we have the same thing we just described with the paintings. The mental work of prioritization has already been done.
Yeah, I love that tip, Chris. And I actually switched to using a smaller planner for a similar reason.
Right.
I had a big old, 8.5 by 11 size planner that just wasn't realistic for the time
Yeah.
that I had. And so working from a tiny, tiny space and learning to prioritize, it's just so much more helpful because then you're actually realistic about it.
Yeah. And that's ultimately what this whole episode has been about, is just trying to be realistic, trying to be honest, right? If you believe that personal projects are important to you, and if you're an artist or a storyteller, you probably do, and you feel frustrated by the fact that you can't find enough time for it, let's just be honest. How's time management working out for you? Maybe it's time to consider priority management instead. And that's priority management vis-a-vis your physical and mental energy on a given day. That's priority management vis-a-vis your workspace. And that's priority management vis-a-vis the concept of productivity. We're your hosts, Chris Oatley
And Veronica Kosofsky. Our production coordinator is Mari Gonzalez Curia.
and this show is made possible by the Magic Box Academy.
Subscribe to this podcast on any of the major platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, YouTube.
And join our email list at magicboxacademy.com for notifications about future episodes, courses, and mentorship opportunities.
Get new digital art brushes with accompanying tutorial guides every month for an entire year with your free membership to the Magic Box Academy Brush Club. Join today at digitalartbrushes.com.
And until next time, friends, remember, you're a better artist than you think.